it's Bonnie Southgate, hEDSRehab here, and I am bringing you another video today. What we're going to do is look at a series of exercises and things for hips. Now, we can have lots of different types of hip issues, so obviously if you have a hip issue and you're seeing somebody for it, then you need to be seeing your physiotherapist for specifics. I'm doing more of generalized, looking at strength for unstable hips for the hypermobile. So we know that the way that the hips are in the socket, that the tendency for subluxations is internal rotation. So a lot of people will have their knees together and it's kind of spread out and those legs are rolling in. Also, if you hyperextend that way, you get that same internal rotation of the hip. So we need to be looking at that. So we have lots of muscles around the hips that do different things because we have enormous amounts of movement in them, and we just need to maximize what we do with our bodies when we don't have that kind of strength through the ligaments that other people do. So I'm just going to start with a standing exercise. And we're going to come into a very small V shape because we know the internal rotation is one of the problems. Now, if your feet roll in and your ankles are knocking together, then we need to start with the feet. So I want you to think about just rolling, if you can, rolling slightly towards the outside of the heel. So our heel bone is in line with your fourth and fifth toe. It does not line up in the middle of the feet. So a lot of times when people think about putting weight through the center of the heel, they think it's the center of the foot. It's slightly to the outside. Now, we can roll those feet out and we can have sprains and things like that. So it might feel a little bit unstable. So it could be a little bit challenging. Try and control so you get just that way there. Now, if you keep the base of your big toe on the ground, you can't roll too far out. So you need to make sure the base of that big toe is down. So we're going to start with the legs just barely turned out and those feet are in that nice position. And I want you to make sure you're not sitting in the back of your knees. So I want to avoid that kind of sitting back there or that kind of arching over. So if you have that kind of position, you can feel there will be a lot of tension through here. I want you to try and lengthen up from the front of the body. It's not about gripping or tucking your bum under. That just shoves your femur forward. It may be about bringing your ribs back and then lifting the sternum up. What we're going to do in this position is we're going to give the legs a teeny bit of a squeeze in that position. So we're working the inner thighs, which can be really hard work. Think about your ballet classes, and we've got that little bit of turnout. We're not forcing the turnout because that most of the time comes from feet. We're just in a little V, and we're going to wrap those legs around and back and draw them together, and then just relax because it's really hard work. And again, we're going to roll them open, and I want you to think that just underneath your bottom, you have a little string and you're just tying it together and back. And you're tying right from those hips, little string ties them together and back. That's going to really make you work hard in your inner thighs and relax. Be careful you're not holding or gripping your pelvic floor in doing this. Think about those feet, roll those thighs, tie them in back, and then relax. Good. Feet are going to be hip width apart now. And I want you just to be aware that if you take a foot forward and you walk onto that foot, do you swing that hip around? Do you lose control? So you're going to try and take 1 foot, I'll come back here so you can see me a bit better, 1 foot forward, and you're going to try and shift the weight onto that leg without losing control of that hip. And then coming back. And we're going to shift, or we're going to walk onto the other leg, and you're going to try not to lose control. So in order to do that, I have to push off my back leg. If I don't push off my back leg, my only option to bring myself onto the front leg is to shift the hip. Actually, that just doesn't feel comfortable even showing it. So I have to take the weight off from my foot of my back to place the weight off onto that leg and come back. So 1 foot forward, push off to come onto this leg and come back. One more time the other side, and push off to come onto that leg and come back. So these are all things that you can try and practice. Now we want to get the muscles around those hips working. So my favorite is the bridge. It's great with the band around the knees as a nice strengthening exercise. So you can lie down and you're going to tie the band around those knees. So I'm tying the knees together, and then I'm going to take my feet slightly apart. Make sure that you're really comfortable stacked on your back, that you've got your head cushioned up. So I'm taking my feet a little bit wider than my hips. And in order to get those really good muscles working that hold those legs in the hip joint, I'm going to gently flatten my back at the same time as I pull the knees open. And I can hold it there for a period of time. So we know that isometric contractions can help with pain relief. So just holding, making those muscles work for a bit can be useful. When you bring the legs back together, I want it to be nice and slow. So you never just let it come back together. That release, strength in the release is just as important as in making it work. And to make these progress, you can use different strengths of bands. So you can start with a lighter band and then you can work to a heavier band. And I would say, it depends on the individual, but the stronger band, the more you can take in terms of tension, the quicker you will strengthen, but you have to be super careful because as hypermobiles, our tissue is more fragile. So I have a medium band, which I like to use on this. But as I get super strong, I might take it up to a heavier band. And that's all down to the individual and how you know you feel. So I'm just pulling those knees open. And I can really feel this working around my hips and coming back in. And now I'm going to take this into a bridge as well. So I'm going to start to take those knees open. I'm going to roll up into my bridge. Now I am not squeezing my bum because that might shear the hips forward. And I'm not gripping my belly. And just placing the weight on my feet as we talked about, slightly thinking about the 4th and 5th toe. That's where the heel lines up with the big toe down. And I'm now going to place weight through the front and the back of the foot and try and create an instep. So I'm going to try and lift my instep up while I'm there. So I'm now working right from the feet on up, and I'm going to roll back down. If you can't find those insteps lifting, don't worry. Still think about it and relax the knees together. And we're going to do the same thing again. You can take those knees open, flattening your back. You're going to come up. Good. And I feel like maybe I'm drawing my heels underneath my feet. So my heel bones are going towards my toes. Rather than scrunching your toes, I want your toes flat on the floor. And then I'm going to come all the way back down. And if you're doing this correctly, you will really feel those muscles working around the hips. So gently bringing those knees back together. I'm going to fold my hips in just for mobility. Take the band away. Now that might be all that you can do if your hips are really uncomfortable. But I'm going to do now some sideline exercises for strength. I know a lot of people are given clams, so these are the versions that I like to use. So I'm going to double my cushion over so my head is really supported, and I'm going to put a cushion in between my knees. So if you've got those unstable hips, you want to always avoid the knee going down or in. When you're just lying passively, if you sleep, it's quite good to cushion it up so that you take the pressure off that top hip. Now, if you can't do this because of shoulders and knees, that's absolutely fine. You might think about trying it on your bed, and if that doesn't work, then these just aren't the exercises for you. So I like to start with my version of the clam, which is taking the feet in the air first and gently coming back down. And again, we're going to bring those feet in the air, and now we're going to take that top knee up and open it as wide as you can. I'm going to take this away so you can just see me. I've got a little triangle, so I'm making a window. And I'm going to slowly, everything needs to return slowly. We don't want to just let the muscles go. And then bring the knees back together. So you may need that cushion so that it doesn't come too far down. My hip feels fine, so I can bring it all the way down. Watch your feet. So I see people do funny things with their feet on this. Relax the feet so that the effort is in the hip and not the feet. And when my feet are here, I shouldn't have them separated there. And bring the legs together. And we'll just do that one more time, taking the knee up. And then gently release it back down. And release the feet. Now I'm going to do some little hip circles just for mobility. And again, everybody's hips are different. So if this isn't comfortable, don't force it. But if you can do it, it's a good one for getting the muscles working against gravity and mobilizing that hip. And I'm going to reverse it. And I can really feel that hip is working. And bring that leg back down. Now, to challenge even further, I'm going to take that leg and I'm going to bring it and hold it hip height. Now, what I want you to watch is that you're not gripping in your waist massively. So keep length in that leg as you hold it there. We're going to reach through the heel. And we're going to bend the knee and the hip forward. So folding at the hip. And then we're going to straighten the leg and we're going to stretch it back. And you can take your arm to counterbalance the hip. My back is not arching. I'm working by using my gluteal muscles to do that. I'm going to bend that knee and I'm going to bring the leg forward that way, because generally we bend the knee as we bring the leg forward and we reach back. You can take it forward. In the Pilates class, they reach it and that gives a stretch to the hamstring, and bring that leg back and reach. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you are at a level, you can do that. And relax the leg back down. And we're going to go to the other side. So these are much harder exercises I'm showing you, but you can do it the levels. You can choose the exercises that you want to do, and if you can do all of them, that will keep those hips really strong. So feet coming in the air. I'm going to keep those ankles from not going like that, and bring them back down. And again, bring those feet, and we're going to take that top knee open and create a window. Slowly bring that knee back down with control and relax the feet to the ground. And again, bring those feet up, bringing the knees up, make a window, gently come back down, and relax the feet. 2 more times, feet come up, knee opens. So everybody watching this video will be at a very different level. And so I reiterate that if you are not comfortable and it doesn't feel 100% safe or good to do an exercise, that you don't do it. There's plenty of exercises to pick from out of these hip exercises that you will be able to do. So make sure you do the ones that you can and don't do the ones that don't feel 100%. And bringing that leg back down. I'm going to reach that leg in a straight line and reach through the heel. And I'm going to bend forward. So I'm flexing my foot, my knee, and my hip. And then I'm reaching that leg back and I'm going to stretch
And you don't have to take the arm, but it helps to counterbalance and it lengthens that whole chain. I'm going to bring that leg forward and I'm going to reach. And now I'm going to take that arm or that leg forward, reaching through the heel and then sending it back. I want you not to drop the leg down. That is an angle that will be pulling the hip not in a great direction. So that hip needs to be ideally hip height, not higher, not lower, but hip height. And reach and relax. So I do feel like I've really worked around those hips now. And we're just going to lie on our backs. Bring both knees up. Gently push the knees away. And to finish off, we're going to give ourselves a hip flexor release. So we're going to kneel, and I'm going to show you a version after this if you can't kneel. 1 foot forward, 1 foot back. We're going to draw that back knee forward and the front heel back. And we're just going to rock into that hip and open up the front of the hip. We're often super tight. You might even want to start this before you do the bridges. And rocking forward. And coming back, never hold the stretch, keep it moving in and out, change feet. So we know through research that stretching, static stretching, does make you more flexible. It weakens the release, what we call the eccentric phase. So that's when we're bringing the leg back down, that phase of muscle use. And that's often when people get injured. So if you can move in and out, then that's good. If you're in a yoga class, you're often active, that's fine. That's not a static stretch. It is taking you to length and keeping you active. So it's a different way of using the muscle. Standing up nice and tall now, just shake the knees out. The very last exercise for hips that I would recommend people try is the squat. And so what I'm going to do is teach you the easiest way to do this correctly in the hips, and that is to take your hand over the top of the pubic bone and to feel like you initiate the movement by dropping the pubic bone back. So what most people do is they're tucked under, they're held, they might be held in their pelvic floors, and even though they feel like they're moving back, they aren't. You can see the slight difference. It's not about arching my back to initiate it. It's dropping the base of the pubic bone back so that I release the muscles there, so that I can fold in my hips, fold in my knees, fold in my ankles, and then come back up. And again, I drop the pubic bone back. If you feel uncomfortable on one side, often what I find is the hip on that side doesn't drop back in the socket as well. So you have to think about the pubic bone on that side dropping back a little bit more as you go into that squat. So it's about letting those thigh bones go back into the socket where they belong and coming back up. One last time, pubic bone drops back. I'm not going down low, but I'm learning to move my hips in a correct way where they can relax back and recenter as I stand up. So that was my little series on exercises for the hip. I hope you enjoyed it. As I said through that video, do what you can. Don't do anything that doesn't feel good. I hope you find these videos useful. If you do, subscribe, give it a like, give me any kind of comments where you maybe find things are helpful or you struggle, and I'll get back to you. It's Bonnie Southgate, hEDSRehab here, and I hope you have a great day.